There's a moment that arrives quietly, almost without warning, when you realize someone you care about has hurt you. And you wait. You wait for the apology that never comes. You wait for acknowledgement, for remorse, for any sign that they see what they did, but all you get is silence. Or worse, justification. And in that moment, you start to wonder, is it me? Am I overreacting? Or is there something deeper happening here? You've probably met someone like this, the kind of person who can wound you and walk away untouched, who can cause pain and feel none of it themselves, who never says sorry, not because they forgot, but because they genuinely don't believe they need to. And if you've ever loved someone like that, or worked with them, or lived with them, you know how confusing it feels. Because these aren't monsters. They're not cold or cruel in obvious ways. They're just untouchable, unreachable, operating under a completely different set of rules. People who never apologize aren't all the same. They don't come from one mold, but they share something in common. A wall. A defense so strong that admitting fault feels like emotional suicide. And understanding why that wall exists is the only way to make sense of them. There's a strange psychology at play here, because refusing to apologize isn't always about arrogance. Sometimes it's about fear. Fear that if they admit they were wrong, everything they've built around being right will collapse. Their identity, their control, their sense of safety in the world. Psychologists have studied this for years, and what they've found is that people who can't apologize often fall into a few categories, and each one protects themselves in a different way. The first type is what researchers call the fragile ego. These are people whose self-worth is so delicate that any admission of fault feels like total failure. To them, being wrong isn't just a mistake, it's proof that they're worthless. So their mind does something automatic. It deflects. It justifies. It rewrites reality so they never have to face the part of themselves they're terrified of. And here's the thing. It's not that they don't know they hurt you. On some level they do. But acknowledging it would mean accepting that they're flawed. And for someone with a fragile ego, being flawed feels unbearable. So instead they shift blame. They tell you that you're too sensitive, that you misunderstood, that you're the one who caused the problem. And over time, you start to doubt yourself because the refusal to see the truth is so convincing that you begin to wonder if maybe they're right. The second type is different. They're what psychologists call the entitled mindset. These people genuinely believe that the rules don't apply to them, that their intentions matter more than the impact, that because they didn't mean to hurt you, they shouldn't have to apologize. And in their world, that logic makes perfect sense, because to them, apologies are for people who did something wrong on purpose. And since they didn't intend harm, there's nothing to apologize for. But here's what they don't understand. Intent doesn't erase impact. You can hurt someone without meaning to, and refusing to acknowledge that hurt doesn't make you innocent. It just makes you dismissive. These people often grew up being told they were special, that they deserved more, that their needs came first. And over time, that belief hardened into a worldview where other people's pain became background noise. Something unfortunate, maybe, but not their responsibility. The third type is quieter, more complex. They're the ones who never apologize because they've learned that vulnerability is dangerous, that admitting fault means losing power, that saying sorry is the same as saying you're weak. Psychologists call this defensive rigidity, and it usually forms in childhood, in homes where mistakes were punished harshly, where being wrong meant being shamed, where love felt conditional on perfection. So these people built a survival strategy. Never admit fault. Never let anyone see you falter. Stay in control at all costs. Because if you apologize, you open the door to being hurt again. And that door has been locked for so long, they've forgotten how to open it. But here's what all three types share. a deep disconnection from empathy. Not because they're incapable of feeling, but because their need to protect themselves has become stronger than their ability to see you clearly. And this is where it gets painful. Because when you love someone who can't apologize, you start to disappear. Your feelings become inconvenient. Your pain becomes an accusation. And instead of being met with care, you're met with defense. You bring up something that hurt you, and they don't hear your pain. They hear an attack. And their instinct isn't to understand, it's to protect. So they counterattack. They list your flaws. They bring up old wounds. They turn the conversation into a battle where they must win. Because losing, to them, means being destroyed. I remember the first time I realized someone I loved would never apologize. It wasn't dramatic. It was small. A comment they made that stung. And when I mentioned it, they looked at me like I'd accused them of something terrible. They didn't ask what hurt me. They didn't pause to consider it. They just defended, explained, justified. And suddenly I was the one apologizing for bringing it up, for making them feel bad, for expecting too much. And that's when I understood. This wasn't about the comment. It was about something deeper, a pattern, a way of being in the world where they could never, ever be wrong, because being wrong felt like annihilation. If you've been there, you know the exhaustion that comes with it, the way you start editing yourself, shrinking your feelings, convincing yourself that maybe it's not that bad, maybe you are overreacting, maybe it's easier to just let it go than to fight a fight you'll never win. But here's the truth most people don't say. Someone who never apologizes isn't protecting themselves from you. They're protecting themselves, from the version of themselves they can't face, the one that makes mistakes, the one that's human, the one that isn't always right. And until they're willing to meet that version of themselves, they'll never be able to meet you either. Because an apology isn't just words. It's acknowledgement. It's seeing someone else's pain and caring more about that than your own comfort. It's saying, I hurt you, and that matters more than being right. And people who can't apologize have spent so long prioritizing their own emotional survival that they've lost the ability to prioritize yours. Psychologists talk about something called emotional accountability. It's the ability to recognize when your actions have hurt someone and take responsibility without defensiveness. And it's one of the clearest markers of emotional maturity. But for people who can't apologize, that accountability feels like a threat, because their entire sense of self is built on the belief that they're good, that they're right, that they don't cause harm, and an apology would shatter that belief. So instead, they rewrite the story. They tell themselves that you're too sensitive, that you're trying to control them, that you're the problem, not them. And over time, they believe it so deeply that they can look you in the eye and feel nothing but righteousness. And here's where it gets even more complicated. Some people who never apologize aren't even aware they're doing it. They've spent so long avoiding accountability that the deflection has become automatic, unconscious, a reflex they don't even notice. Their mind protects them before they even realize there's something to protect against. And that makes change almost impossible, because you can't fix what you don't see. So what do you do when you're dealing with someone like this? When you love them, need them, or can't walk away? The hard truth is this: you can't make them apologize. You can't force empathy. You can't logic someone into caring about your pain if they've decided it's not real. What you can do is protect yourself. Stop waiting for the apology that will never come. Stop shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. Stop accepting breadcrumbs of acknowledgement and calling it accountability. Because staying in a relationship with someone who can't apologize means accepting that you'll always be the one who bends, the one who forgives without being met, the one who carries the emotional weight while they walk away unburdened. And that's not love, that's survival. Here's the shift that has to happen. You have to stop needing their apology to validate your pain. Your feelings don't require their approval to be real. You are hurt. That's enough. You don't need them to admit it for it to be true. And once you stop waiting for their acknowledgement, something changes. You stop giving them the power to define your reality. You stop letting their refusal to see you make you feel invisible. Because the people who never apologize don't just withhold words. They withhold validation. They withhold connection. They withhold the basic human acknowledgement that says, you matter. Your feelings matter. I see you. And you deserve that, even if they can't give it. But here's the heartbreaking part. Some people go their whole lives never learning how to apologize. They lose relationships. They alienate the people who love them. They live in a fortress of their own making, convinced they're protecting themselves when really they're just alone. And the tragedy is that apologizing doesn't make you